Welcome to the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. We're also on BitChute and YouTube, and you find us on Speaking Podcast as well. I also have the Awakening Podcast, Learn Polish Podcast, Meditation Podcast, and the Crypto Podcast, and all can be found on roycollin.com. Today, my guest, TEDx speaker and coach, please welcome Renée Jones.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So you might let the audience know, who's Renée?
Well, I spent 40 years on the diet yo-yo, not doing very well, obviously. But in 2012, I finally realized I had to do something different. And I worked it out, finally, took a while, but I lost my weight and I have maintained it for over 9 years now. And it makes me very happy. So I decided, you know what, there are others who have the same issues as I have. So I started coaching and speaking on that.
Excellent. Very good. And with the speaking then, because I know you've done the TEDx, but what's your speaking journey? Was it something that you were always okay with, or was it something that was difficult for you?
Oh, it was very difficult. In fact, in a year before I was standing on the TEDx stage, almost to the day, my husband said, you might want to think about speaking. And I said, love, I'm never going to be a speaker. And by August, I had hired my first speaking coach just to kind of learn the ropes of it. And when I got the TEDx, I hired another one to help me prepare specifically for that. And my first memorized talk was actually the TEDx.
Wow.
I know. Probably not the best way to start it, but there we are.
Well, I've heard your TEDx and it made me laugh. And it was actually, there's a load of TEDx out there. Not all of them are brilliant, but I really enjoyed yours. I thought it was fantastic. So
thank you.
Whether it's down to the amount of times you practice, but the fact that you went away and got a coach, meant you took it seriously, because sometimes people, they just kind of wing it, and I think it reflects. You've got nearly 600,000 views already, which is incredible.
Yeah, I'm gobsmacked every day by that. It's like, where did they all come from? But I'm hoping that it's out there helping others also overcome emotional eating.
No, definitely. And how much coaching did you get for that? Like, was it a couple of hours, or was it weekly or monthly, and how long beforehand that you knew you had to speak?
Well, the initial coaching was in the fall, autumn of that year of 2018, I guess. No, 2017. So I got some basic information about how to do a talk. And then with the coach that I hired specifically for the TEDx, I'd already sort of written out what I thought would be my talk. And, my previous coach approved it, said, yeah, just keep practicing. It'll be great. And I had to submit the first video, because of course they want like 3 videos of you doing this talk.
Oh.
Yeah. And they give you feedback, which is lovely. It helps you, right? So between the first and the second, I started working with this other gentleman, and he adjusted things just a little, but much more about how I stood and spoke and used my hands and all that kind of thing. And on the dress rehearsal before the TEDx talk, the organizer said, you may be the most improved speaker I've ever seen. Between videos 1 and 2, there was a massive change. And I thought, I know where that came from. So we only had about from the 1st of March to the 15th of May before we did it. So right at 10 weeks in between. Normally there's a little more time, but this one they were trying to fit in an extra one. So we would send in the first talk, the first video. They would give us feedback. We'd go back and do some work on it. Then you submit the second video, which you can still use your notes, but you've got to be standing and looking at the camera. And then the third one, you have to do completely off notes. And then they gave me feedback on that one on like the Thursday before we did the talk on the Monday or the Tuesday. But the dress rehearsal was on the Monday, and they gave us more feedback on that day just to make sure it could be the best it possibly could be. because that was the point, isn't it? To make the talk the best material that you can share.
And how many times, or do you know, did you practice it?
Oh my word. Yeah. Every day, at least twice, once I had it down. So from mid-April to mid-May, at least once or twice a day, because it was just so important to get it memorized. And memorizing is not necessarily my best thing. But I even had just over there, there's still tape on the floor from where I taped out the circle, the red circle, which is part of it, because they said you want to be able to use the entire circle. So make sure you practice somehow. And I've used that for several other things since, so it hasn't gone to waste. But I had cards that I would carry with me, 4x6 cards that I would carry with me everywhere. I recorded it, and on my morning walk, I would listen to it at least twice, just trying to get it in as much as possible, because they're very kind. What they want is for your talk to be the best it can be. So if you make a mistake, you can kind of stop, go back, and start again. But I wanted to have as little of that as possible. And I did not want to just do the off the cuff kind of stuff unless I thought, okay, this is an appropriate place, because I didn't want to get in the weeds. I'm good at getting in the weeds. So I just wanted to give the best talk that I could. So yeah, at least twice a day, sometimes more, depending on how nervous I was getting about it.
And with the humor, because I laughed a few times during it. It was very good. Were you intentionally putting in the humor, or was it just something that kind of fell into place? And was there stuff they were trying to take out and put in regarding the humor?
Well, there are just some things about weight loss that are just humorous. And if I didn't laugh about it, I would be crying. But you might remember there was one point when someone over on the far right side of me said something. And I just thought, it's okay to respond to him. That's all right. So I did, which added just a little more laughter to the situation, which was good. It was good.
Very good, very good. And with like the emotional coaching, then the eating, because everybody, I mean, me personally, I kind of have it down to a T that I don't buy it, and I'm grand. But then when my mother sends over a box for me and my son, it's like I gorge and I go, this is sad.
What was I thinking? Yeah, I mean, it is a very natural response, because if you think about it, when your son was a baby and he cried, you probably put something in his mouth, whether it was a bottle or a pacifier dummy. I had an auntie who used to just put her little finger in the baby's mouth if she had nothing else, because there is that sense of soothing when we put something in our mouth. Unfortunately, as you grow older, once they take that dummy away, the child often goes to their thumb or to biting nails. And as adults, we tend to go to donut, Twinkie, cake, pizza, whatever we think will soothe us in that moment. So it's something that we learned from birth. It's very natural. It's very normal. It's just not very helpful. So if we can find other ways to soothe ourselves other than putting something in our mouths, because we know there are other ways we soothe ourselves. It's just the food is easy and it's available and it's legal. So it makes it very easy to choose, but we've got to find a different way. And that's one of the things I work through with my clients is, okay, what else would soothe you? Or what is it that you actually need? In fact, I have an acronym. I say it's not difficult to overcome emotional eating. We just have to get the hang of it. And hang is the acronym. So the H is, am I hungry? And if you're hungry, you may well need something to eat. But if you're not, we go to the A. What is the attraction to food? What's driving me toward this right now? And the N is need. What do I actually need? You may need a hug. You may need to have a quick walk. You may need to play with a dog. Whatever it is, find that And then the G is go get that, because that will soothe you more than food ever possibly could.
And you mentioned you went through the yo-yos and everything. So what things did you try? Because then people can kind of relate to it before they hopefully make the transition to, that they can last for, the amount of time that you've done, that you've managed to keep off the weight.
Well, I just decided that trying to slake my thirst for love, joy, encouragement with a Twinkie or peanut butter wasn't going to do it for me anymore. Because when you think about it that way, it makes no sense. It's like, how could this make me feel better about that? And once you kind of get in the habit of choosing something different, of saying, okay, I'm staring down the chocolate chips in the pantry. What is it that I actually want or need? In the TEDx talk, I talked about peanut butter being a tangible connection to my grandmother and the love and encouragement she gave me. So when I was circling the refrigerator, I would think, okay, I need love and encouragement. Where else can I get that? And then you go do that. And it takes some practice. And will you stumble? Probably. But a stumble may prevent a fall. So how can you, okay, so you may have tripped this time. How can you safeguard yourself for the next? What kind of walking stick do you need? What kind of Zimmer do you need for right now to help you get through this situation? What kind of support? What parameters? Don't buy the stuff if you can. I didn't buy peanut butter for 2 years, and the dog was not very happy with me because he loved peanut butter. But, it was better for it not to be in the house for a while. Now it lives in the garage, actually, because I have those extra steps that I have to take to go get it if I need it or want it for something else. It's not allowed to be a soother anymore.
What I've done with chocolate is, because I could gorge on chocolate, but
yeah.
I buy 72% plus cocoa. So then I'll just take a few squares, or I mightn't want any. And I didn't take any now for a couple of weeks. It's in the fridge. I always have it. But if that was an ordinary bar, like my mother sent stuff a couple of weeks ago, it didn't last. It didn't last a day. It's just, and that's all full of sugar and toxins and everything, which in turn makes you crave it even more.
Yes, indeed. And what you did was you upgraded your desire for a particular substance. So instead of just having milk chocolate or a lower amount of cocoa, you said, no, I want this really good chocolate, and I want it to be this percentage, so that you actually get all the wonderful things. What is it? Phenethylamine is in chocolate, and it's the same chemical that is produced in our brain when we're in love, which is why, we're all chocolate crazed, because sometimes you just need a little help on that. Have you tried cocoa nibs?
What are they?
Cocoa nibs. It's what they crush to make cocoa. Oh, dude, you got to try that, because you get 1 tablespoon of those is a serious chocolate hit. You might give it a try.
Well, I find,
but upgrading the game on whatever food, getting the better quality one means you get more of whatever it is you need from that physically, chemically. And sometimes it can help you to balance so that you don't overdo it. You just think, okay, I'm settled now. Let me go get the other thing that I need. And it usually doesn't have nearly so many calories in it.
Exactly. And what I found is, I think the wheat that's grown now has been modified that it's toxic. So I've cut out all that, I like in the pizza and everything. But for some reason, I can get up in the morning. I don't be hungry in the morning. I make sure I have, water, maybe with cider vinegar in it. And even like today, I didn't have my so-called breakfast till 2 o'clock. But what I find is then when I kind of settle down and just kind of put on a show or something like that, I'm not eating junk. I'm eating like peanuts, but I'm eating a lot. Like, so I can actually not eat till 2 o'clock. Then maybe I'll wait till 7 or 8, but then I'm kind of going and going and going. And it's like,
Is that working for you?
well, I'm probably 10% overweight, I would say. I'm not like I'm not obese or anything, but I mean, I'm not toned like I want to be.
So one of the things that I do is I cut out snacks altogether. And that helps me because it keeps my blood sugar stable, which is good. But if I'm going to have something, I put it in a bowl. I put an apportioned amount into a bowl or on a plate or whatever. Because then when it's gone, it's gone. You're not just, when you've got an open container,
it's like the packet of peanuts with a selection of peanuts. I just diddled it and they're all gone. But it's a big bag. But yeah, I mean that's a good tip, to put it in a decent portion into a bowl, but then that's it.
Yes. Because I mean, we will just, because they're so nice, because of that bliss point, we will tend to just keep eating. But once it's gone, it's gone. I mean, you don't go get another packet, do you?
Usually not, but there's been times I have. But I mean, I'm kind of thinking, I'm eating healthy stuff, but the reality is you shouldn't be eating like that, especially late as well. It's not good.
Well, and too much of a good thing is still too much.
Yeah.
One of the things that I tell my clients is, okay, if you have a craving for something and you just cannot say no to that craving, that's fine. You may need to have it this time. But what I want you to do is put it on a plate or in a bowl. Use a knife, fork, spoon, whatever is the appropriate utensil for that. Sit down at your table with a placemat, a nice glass, maybe even candles. Make it a space, and then sit down and actually chew and enjoy that food. Because you need to give the food the same honor that you're giving that craving. If you're eating it over the rubbish bin or the sink, hoping you're not caught, that's not much honor you're giving to the food, is it?
Or like what I'm watching a movie or something like that, because you're not even paying attention. You're just, that's why your body doesn't even realize you're full, because you're not paying attention to the eating of it.
Yeah. Do you know, my grandmother made wonderful pies, and they were always so good. We'd eat it so fast. And what I finally realized is, if I will slow down and enjoy that food, squeezing every bit of flavor out of that bite, then it's usually a lot more satisfying, and I don't need a second piece because I've enjoyed the first one.
I remember being in Costa Rica and they made us do mindful eating, and they even done it when we were blindfolded, and then that you weren't able to talk as well, just eating the pineapple and everything. And like eating the square, I mean, I know that the fruit is a lot better there anyway than when it has to be transported, but it was like drinking pineapple juice, just eating the square. It was like, I remember, and the fact that I didn't kind of maintain that, I need to do that. But I think what you said there is probably right. I shouldn't eat while watching the television. I should put down the placemat and eat and enjoy. Because like when I'm having my breakfast, even with my son, we sit in the kitchen, we're looking at each other, having a conversation, and we're not eating fast or anything. But then in the evening, it tends to be, it's the evening, which is wrong. Like, to be doing that.
But if you want to eat in front of the television, have celery, because you'll enjoy it just as much as whatever it was you were thinking about eating. Because you're just chewing, aren't you?
Yeah.
So either put it at the table or use celery, something with no calories whatsoever. It gives you a good crunch.
And I know I was admiring your bookshelf before we started, and it's beautiful and it's impressive. But I know you're actually an author yourself, so you've actually wrote a book,
yeah. It's over here. It's What's Really Eating You? Overcome the Triggers of Comfort Eating. And it's basically my process for what I did. Some of the things that I talked about with my coach, who helped me get honest and real about what I was doing, and then some ideas for how to make it work for you.
Very good. And I know you also help people with those with low self-esteem, which in turn, I suppose, a lot would comfort eat, but perhaps you might talk a bit on that, people with low self-esteem, because I mean, there's a lot out there, and people try to hide it as well, but we can see it.
Yeah. Well, it's just epidemic. Low self-esteem. It's more than the pandemic, right? Because we struggle with it. And when we don't feel good about ourselves, then if your go-to is to eat, then you'll eat more. But if we can raise your self-esteem, help you realize the qualities that you have and how to focus on those. I had this one client, she said, I just can't. I just can't. And I said, okay, so tell me, did you kill someone? Well, no. Did you steal money from people? No. Do you beat children for no reason? No. I said, what is so awful about you? I mean, those are the top three for most people. If none of those are true, what could possibly be so awful about you? And she's like, well, you could come up with an answer. But we're told as we're growing up, we get so much baggage packed for us. You're not good at this is bad, all that. And it's very hard to come out of that when you have that negative loop going in your mind. But if we can break that loop for even a minute, and you can see a little bit of your value, then it's so much easier to feel better about yourself. In fact, I call my company Pack Your Own Bag, because our stuff gets packed for us. And sometimes we have to unpack some of the stuff we've dragged with us for decades in order to pack for the journey we want to be on, not the one we just stumbled into.
Very good. I know you talk about keto, K-E-T-A-O diets. Like, I know people that have done that, and like, it's kind of like eating eggs and meat and stuff like that, and cutting a lot of stuff out. You might talk a bit on that, okay. I don't know much about it.
So I lost my weight on a low-fat, low-calorie diet because that's what I knew. It's what we were told. And I found I was tired, hungry, and cranky all the time. And 2 years in, I was thinking, oh, God, there's got to be a better way. And I did this metabolic assessment, which I now do with all of my clients. And without exaggeration, it transformed my life, because it said, hey, your body needs more fat. I was like, fat? That's what I've been trying to avoid. And I thought, okay, I'm at my goal weight. I'm 52 years old. I can follow this plan for a week and see what happens. And it was like butter and bacon and cheese sauce. It was wonderful. And I lost 2 pounds that week. And I was like 119 pounds, so 8.5 stone. And I lost 2 pounds. I'm only 5'3", so I'm a little woman to begin with. We don't get that many extra calories. But it was amazing to me. And that put me on the path of looking at this whole idea. And I found keto. And I was resistant to it at first because I make really good bread. Men have bowed before me for my bread. That's how good it was. But what I found was, like you with the wheat, it makes me cranky. It's just better if I don't have it. So I live keto to low carb because it works for me. Because when I was in school, we did the cold cereals for breakfast, like a lot of families did. And I always wondered why in half an hour I was starving, because it wasn't the food that worked for my body. And now that I know what works for my body, it doesn't really matter to me what other people say about it. If it works for me, that's good. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. I mean, I have a number of clients who cannot do that. I have a cousin who can't do that. It doesn't work for her body. It doesn't work for my brother's body, but it
somebody
works for
mentioned
me.
it is to do with the blood, different blood types. That's
Blood types can be, but it just depends on your metabolic system. And it works for me. So now I do that with my clients. In fact, I did one early this morning with a client, and she's a slow oxidizer, where I'm a fast oxidizer, which is why I go through carbs so quickly. They just make me hungry. So when I talk to clients about diet, it's like, let's find what works for you. Because if it doesn't work for you, you're not going to stick with it. It's not going to become sustainable for you. And people say, what's the best diet? And I said, the one you'll stick with. Diets stop working because we stop doing anything. We don't learn anything from them. We just go back to the way we used to eat. Whereas if you find what works for you and keep doing that, whether it's a calorie deficit or just a different foods, then you'll make it sustainable. I love eating the way I eat. And the only difference that I make when I need to lose a pound or two that I've just sort of put on because we get portion distortion and all of that is I just cut my calories back a little bit and it goes away. But I can live with this basic nutrition plan forever.
Brilliant. And you mentioned about the cereal, like we've been kind of conditioned from a young age and from the governments. Cereal is the best thing that you can have. It is one of the most toxic things when you look at the ingredients that's in it. Not only the sugar, there's other toxins in it as well. But then the milk, I'm not sure if you take milk, but I mean, with the milk, you've got the growth hormones, antibiotics and everything that's in milk. So you're combining the two of them and you're giving them to children thinking that they're getting a healthy, nutritious breakfast.
Do you know how they came up with dry cereals? Are you aware of that?
I've heard a few things regarding what's Kellogg's.
Yeah. Because he was a doctor. Kellogg was a doctor. And he had a nurse who worked with him who was Seventh-day Adventist. And they are vegetarian, which is fine. But they decided that they had to find a way to feed men in their clinic, and the men in the clinic were there for overly pleasuring themselves, should we say? Right?
Well, that's what I heard, and I've heard that on a podcast.
Yeah, because if the Seventh-day Adventists believe that meat increases the passions. So if you take away the meat, then the passions will calm down. So that's what they were trying to do with these men. And one of their clients was a guy named Post. So they came up with these flattened bits of wheat and corn and rice in order to feed the men. And that's how we came up with these cereals. And it just kind of, I don't know about you, but just that whole thought put me off cereal altogether. It's like, no, don't think I can ever dissociate masturbation and cereal, dry cereal. Sorry.
Well, it's funny because I heard of it's actually Blind Boy. He done a full episode on that. He's got a very good podcast, and he talked exactly how the whole lot was orchestrated. And yeah, it's interesting because I've never heard anybody else know about it, only from that. So it's interesting that you've heard about it as well.
Oh, it's in the history. It's there. It's just not talked about much.
Exactly. So I know you spoke in the UK as well as the USA. So what have you learned? Like, because I mean, the terminology, because I've even noticed it even when you're talking to me, you said pounds and then you said stone you're conscious. There's been a few times that you've actually given two kind of meanings, but I knew both of them. But so you've kind of incorporated that when you have to speak in the different countries.
Well, I lived in Wales for about 4 years. Because I'm talking to you, I tend to get culturally confused. I used to do this TV program, and the producer and the sound guy used to take a bet. If there was someone who had any sort of accent, they're like, how long will she stay American before she goes Welsh on us? I'm sorry, I can't help it. It just happens. Right. But yes, I learned I'm fluent in American English, British English, and Wenglish. So I think it's important because we live in such a global society now. If you know the correct words that help people, I mean, Americans, we can be terrible about thinking that we're the only ones, but we're not. So if I know the words that will be helpful, if I spoke other languages than Wenglish, it'd be helpful, but I don't. So I can do what I can to help others who probably get tired of Americans using all American English.
There's a few things that a lot of them, they'll talk Fahrenheit and they just assume everybody understands Fahrenheit in sentence.
No.
And feet as well. They'll say X feet. I mean, I know previously it used to be feet, but I mean, that's gone into the metric system and they'll say that as well. So to actually take into account how the audience will listen, but not all of them do that. So it's brilliant that you actually.
Well, they may not know. A lot of them don't know. Like if we were talking, I remember talking to one of my Welsh friends about a house that their friend was buying. And I said, well, how many square feet of it is it? And she said, I have no idea. What are you talking about? Because you do square meters. And then I was thinking, okay, multiply the feet times 3 I can't do that math in my head. But we have these little computers in our pockets, don't we? These phones that can figure some things out. So exactly. Do what we can to be helpful.
No, definitely. And just getting back to the coaching then, with like, do you do kind of a free call or do you just kind of advertise it? And so, because I'm kind of asking that recently and I'm curious about it because I'm kind of going down the podcasting coaching route myself. And like, do you work it that you should have a certain conversion rate or is it just finding the right fit?
Oh, no. The thing is with coaching, if they're not all in and they don't trust me, they're not going to get very far. So it's important to find the right fit. I don't have any quotas. I'd like to have a certain number of clients per month, but if I don't run across people who are ready, because that's an important thing. If you're not ready to do this, then you won't do it. I had the year that I was losing my weight, it was my New Year's resolution. So I started January, then I had to start again the middle of January, again the 1st of February, again the 1st of March. It took me a while to actually get my head completely in this space in order to go forward. And if you're not there, you've got to be ready. So yeah, I mean, I do a call so that they can kind of get to know me, see if they know, like, or trust me enough, because it's not 50 cents an hour, right? It's not 50 pence an hour. It's not 50. What is it? What's a euro coin?
Cent,
do they do euro?
50 cents?
Okay. All right. So they need to be certain or feel comfortable. And I need to feel comfortable knowing that they're going to do this for themselves, because I don't want to take their money if they're not going to do it. That seems like stealing to me. But if they're ready, I'm happy to take them on and help them get where they want to go, whether that's weight loss or just life stuff, because let's face it, so much of our weight issues have more to do with life. When I was working with my coach, we talked about food a couple of times. We talked a lot more about life and what was going on and unpacking that baggage.
Excellent. And with like promoting yourself then, whether it's through promoting your book, what with the social media, because it seems to be a minefield out there and everybody's got their own secret sauce and their own specific one that they like. Which ones do you prefer and how do you use them?
Well, I use Instagram and Facebook because they're both popular. I actually have a good following of people who are 50 and over, and they're more on Facebook. And my 40s and 30s are on Instagram generally. So that's how I do that. And then I've got a YouTube channel with long form kind of videos of whatever topic, basically my blog. And on Facebook, it's like facebook.com/pack your own bag. On Instagram, I'm at pack your own bag. So I try to keep it fairly consistent.
Yeah, no, I think that's important. I try to do that with the different podcasts, and I learn Polish with all the domain. And I mean, sometimes it's not available, but it makes it easier for people to find you when you kind of try to stick, because sometimes people use all different things, and it's a mixed message then. And if they try to find you, they won't.
Yeah, well, it's just harder. And I think that's because I don't know about you, but the early days of social media, I wasn't quite sure what I was doing.
Yeah, I think
but I did manage to get at least those two on the same page.
I think that's the secret. I think it's kind of finding the ones that you enjoy the best and work for you and sticking to them, instead of trying to do 50 of them and hoping that they'll work. Because one, it's the time constraints. It takes so much time to post on all these different things.
Yes, it does. It does. And, you got to know who your audience is. I have had one coach who called me a senior adult whisperer because I had a lot of senior adults in my clients, but that was great. It's good to help them tell their stories.
Absolutely. Finally, I mean, those that are listening, I think you need to check the video out, because you'll see the background of Renée is just what a wonderful library behind you. What books have you read that you would recommend? Because obviously you're an avid reader when you see a beautiful bookshelf like that.
Yes, my husband and I are a terror for books. And when we moved into this house, I was like, I want a library with a ladder. So because I'm a short little woman, I need help on this upper things. I think one of the books that helped me a lot, there's one on habit change called Better Than Before, and it's by Gretchen Rubin. And it's different strategies for changing a habit, because we all work different ways. She has a profile in there about our different types, whether you are an upholder, a questioner, an obliger, or a rebel. And obligers work well with external accountability. So if I want to get anything done, I make it external, because that helps me do it. And like 2/3 of the population are obligers. So, and then she's got like 21 strategies for changing a habit to something you want it to be. I'm also, I like spiritual books. And I found this one by John Eldredge called Beautiful Outlaw. And it's specifically about, Jesus, and how we often misread him, and just humanizing him in the best possible way. So those are a couple of really good books I've read recently.
Excellent. Renée, it's been beautiful speaking. Just, you might let people know how, I mean, you've mentioned some of the handles, but you might let them know the websites and best place to contact you.
All right. So the website is packyourownbag.com. And that's the best place to go to get to me, because it's got email and phone numbers and all kinds of things there.
Okay, perfect. And what I'll do is I'll include all the links for the Facebook and LinkedIn, so that, people, because everybody, as you said, different age groups, different they prefer Instagram, whatever they prefer. So I'll put them all in there so that people can actually get in contact with you.
Terrific. Thank you. I appreciate that.
So listen, Renée, thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
So that's all for the Speaking Podcast. You can find all our episodes on speakingpodcast.com. As mentioned, we're on BitChute and YouTube, Speaking Podcast. And be sure to give us a thumbs up, 5-star rating, share with your friends. Until next week, take care.